it's Tamara from Dr. Digi Stamps here for another card making tutorial this week using this cute image from Dr. Digi Stamps called Bertrand's Balloon Break. I'm going to be doing a little bit of Copic colouring at first so you can see how we've coloured up the image, and then I'm actually going to be making an interactive card today, so we'll have the card making process at the end of the video. So let's get started with some Copic colouring. Okay, we're going to start on our background panel now. I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending. I have chosen to do a 5x7 card just because my image is just a little bit bigger, and I'm going to do it landscape so that he can fly across the sky. So I'm going to do a setting sun look, but I've chosen oranges and yellows to tie in with the purple that I have done the balloon. So let's get ink blending. I'm actually going to start from darkest and go through to lightest. I normally go the opposite way, but I'm going to be fading this squeeze lemonade out into the white, so it's easier to go from darkest to lightest. So let's get started with ripe persimmon, and then we can go out to the other two colours. So I like to dab mine off, especially with the darker colours, like the ripe persimmon, especially this one's very juicy. And then we'll kind of blend down so that it doesn't overtake the mustard seed. Go the mustard seed next, take that off and get that blending in. Just go over that top colour a little bit, and then just bring maybe a little bit of colour back into that top to keep that nice and bright. So it looks like a nice blend. I'll just go over a little bit with the mustard seed again. And we'll move on to the squeezed lemonade. Remember, we're wanting to fade this out, so we need to ink this one up a little bit. And we're fading it out to the white. I do like using these rounded ink blending. They just don't seem to leave the streaks like some of the squarer ones do. Fade that out. You might just grab a piece of scrap paper to hold as we kind of blend that down and into the white. Don't want to get any fingerprints on your beautiful blended panel, so that's why a bit of paper works really well. That looks very good. So we'll just go over where the mustard seed and the squeezed lemonade join and get a smooth transition there. We'll just go over with the squeezed lemonade where they join again. I think that's looking really good. So just to give it a bit of interest, I normally like to do a quick spray of water. So I've just got a disperse sprayer, but you don't need one of these. You can just use a artist's like brush and just dip it in some water and just tap it on your finger like so. I just find this works well for me because you can change the size of the droplets to a really light spray or to some big droplets. So if you want some big droplets, just a little squeeze gets those happening for you. And then I just have a piece of paper towel and just dab that off to get rid of the excess. And it just gives it a little bit more interest on there. So I think I might need a little bit more where the darker orange is. That's looking pretty good. I'll just dab that off. So that's the background panel done, so we'll just set that aside to dry. You can still see a few little drops there, so just make sure you get all the drops off so it doesn't take out too much colour. And we'll set that aside and come back and make our card. Okay, so I have my back panel ready to go. I've actually done the sentiment already because I wanted to make sure that was dry and I didn't smudge it. And I've also cut out my little channel for the mechanism to go through. Now I'm actually have decided to do a little border so that it actually hides where the mechanism is, but if you choose that you don't want to use something to hide it, you can just use the plain panel. Then make sure you keep this backing panel so that it actually blends in well, and you can stick that to the back of your card and that way you don't see the white card or whatever card color is underneath. Then I'd also recommend discoloring that to match in like a yellow, and that would blend in as well as you pull that back and forth. So obviously I don't need to keep that, so I'll pop that to the side, and obviously we don't need that channel. If you don't have one of these, which you don't need one, you can either just cut something with, if you've got a craft knife, you can make it channeled like that, or you can just make it straight if you want just him to be floating across the sky. So yeah, you don't need these. They are super helpful if you do have them. They make it so much more quick and easy to do it, and yeah, but not a necessity. Now I also have some other dies that can cut out your pull tab. Again, you don't need these. You can just use just cut a couple of strips and use it that way. But I just find these just have a nice finish with the rounded end. Now, obviously this one's a bit longer because I'm doing it landscape. So what I did was just do some partial die cutting. So you just have your cardstock there, but instead of holding it up, cutting it right to the end, you just put your plate like this, so it'll only cut to there and it won't cut the end off. And then I just used my scissors just to extend them out so that it was the right length that I needed. So that's a really helpful way just to add, and that's what I also did with the cloud base. This cloud die is only so long, so I cut that out first and then I did the balance to make it the length that I needed for the card base to match. So there's a couple of other dies that I've done. I've actually doubled up the pull tab because some people do pull it quite roughly, so you want to make sure something's very strong for people to use. So that's why I always cut two and stick them together. And then you don't need one of these, but if you do have them, it just kind of makes the edges a bit rounder. So I've cut two of those, and that is for our swivel part to help us and navigate through the little channel for the balloon to go through. So what we'll do is just I've just got found like a small rounded circle in my stash, which I'm going to just cut through this pull tab, because that's what we're going to link up with our little swivel mechanism here. So I'll just go and die cut that. Okay, so we can pop that aside. So we've now cut the hole in the end of our pull tab, so we can move that little circle die out of the way. And what we're going to do is use this little tab to attach to this. So we want that underneath, and so you want your pull on facing down onto that little tab. So pop it on like that, and I am just going to use, I have these round foam dots. I'm going to stick one of those through there. It doesn't have to be perfectly lined up, but you can do that. So we pop that into that little slot there. We'll pull off the release paper, and then you just need a little round circle just to cap that off. So we'll pop that over the top like so. Now we're going to get a little bit of movement happening in here for it to go in the channel, but we don't want too much. So I'll get a little bit of foam tape and we'll just cut a small amount to stop that moving. So you want a little bit of movement, but not too much. So we'll just put it up slightly above there. And we'll see, and that moves. I think that should be enough movement in that. So just take it up just a little bit above where that goes. You can set that aside. We don't want that sticky, so what we might do is just dust that so there's no stickiness on there. Okay, so then we can flip that over and we'll get started on attaching it to our card front. Okay, so I've just realised that my pull tab, once we've got this little lever bit on the end, it's was going to be a little bit too long and stick out too far from the end of my panel. So I've trimmed that down to now take into account this little bit on the end. So just be aware of that when you're doing yours. So now that we're going to work on this side with the pull side up, we're going to attach another one of our round foam dots on the end of this little wiggle, this small little part, and we want to pop that through our channel like so. Now we can release the paper, and then we want to put a little cap on the end like so, and then we'll flip this over. Now we want to keep that lined up. So yeah, just check that works. So we might just pop a little bit of double-sided tape just there, just to hold that in place, so we've got that in the right spot, which looks pretty good. Just move that down, that looks better. So pop that down like so. Now we want to just fold this around the pull tab so that it holds it in place. So you just want to kind of fold it so that it's the same size as that pull tab. Let's check that that's the right size. That looks good. And we just want to glue that. Actually, it might be better with a bit of tape runner so that we don't have any glue escaping anywhere. Just pop a little bit of tape runner on there and close that up. And then we just want a little bit of tape runner on the bottom so that we can attach that to the actual card base to hold that pull tab in place. And line that up, just slide that in, and you just want it at the end there. Release that paper and let's just give it a whirl and see if it moves. That looks really good. It just slides through that perfectly. Let's start putting some foam tape on. Okay, so I've got all my foam tape cut, ready to go. So we'll start placing that around the edges, and obviously I have doubled up on the foam tape just to give that mechanism plenty of room to move as well. So we'll pop these on. I forgot to double up on this one. I'll just pop another bit on there. Okay. So you can just put it straight onto your card base if you want, but I like to just put it on to a plain bit of cardstock, because that way you can line it up a little bit better and then stick that on to your card base. So I normally just line it up on the desk and then just press that down. So I am a little bit crooked, but a good thing that you can do there is you can just trim that card underneath. So just trim that out. And that way you can't see that card underneath there, and you can stick that straight onto your card base. And that's not too bad down the side, but we might just give that a little bit of a trim. Be careful not to cut your pull tab. That's good. So that way you can't see the actual card underneath. So let's check again that our mechanism's still working. Perfect. So what we can do now is just attach that card base onto your cardstock. Actually, we might leave that till last. So I'll just cut a little bit more off that bottom panel there. Looks good. Okay, so actually we'll leave that card base to last. So what we want to do now is add, you can either use some like clear cello tape or some clear plastic to put that up, but obviously my Bertrand's image is quite a good size, so I'm just using a piece of cardstock that we can just attach to the back of him there. And so you can put that onto the base, and then he can float above the cloud line. So, so it's most very best to put a bit of glue onto this so we can attach that cello, not the cello tape, but we're using the cardboard. So I might have him like just floating backwards a little bit, so he's like floating through the sky. So we'll just give that a little bit of time to dry. Okay, so we've got that, that's dry now, so we can pop our little cloud base on. I found that you only need a single layer of foam tape for this one. You don't need the double like you do underneath. And also, just to make sure you don't get in the way of this base of this like little tab, just make sure you use only a very thin strip to that will fit along the base of your card underneath your opening. So we'll try and center that as best we can. Looks pretty good. Pop that down. Let's just again make sure that's moving well, which it is. Perfect. So then we can add Bertrand. Now you want him obviously to be floating on the top, so you could just stick him down, but if you want him kind of popped up a little bit, we might just pop a little bit of foam tape up there to give him a little bit of an area to just float kind of off the card. I'll give that a try. I think it should look pretty good. That should give him enough to hold him there. Pop him so he just floats across the sky. That, and then we just want to trim off that excess that's popping out from above him just there. So just cut that out like so. And make sure that he floats along nicely. He does. Now it's a little bit plain up the top, so we might, I just kind of coloured up some clouds, so I thought it might be nice just to add some clouds around the card just to give it a little bit of something else. So I think 2 there, and maybe 1 over this side of him, so when he moves he can float over there. So let's just add, and obviously we want to just add some just plain glue, because we don't want any dimension in these, because we don't want them getting in the way of Bertrand. One just under there. Yeah. I'll move Bertrand across a little bit. Might say we'll pop another one over here. Move him back. I don't know whether we'd need another one. I don't know whether we should do another one there to make a third one. I think the 3, but I think maybe a little bit more won't hurt. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So now we'll attach him to the card base. Look on around. Pop him down. Beautiful. Try and make sure it's centered. Okay, let's give him a burl. Yep, he's floating along perfectly. I hope you've had some fun watching this video and it's given you some ideas for either making Bertrand fly or something else that you've seen. But yeah, feel free to have a look at Bertrand in the store. So fun to colour up and obviously very versatile. So I hope to see a few cards that you've made and hope you have a great week. Bye.